Morning light finds the living room before the rest of the house wakes. A cracked mug on the coffee table, a child's small sneaker tucked under the couch, a stained work shirt draped over the back of a folding chair. On that couch, a man sleeps with one arm curled around a pillow as if it were a child. He wakes before the alarm, not because he needs to, but because he always does. He listens for the rhythm of the house, soft breathing from the bedroom, the tiny scrape of a toy, and names the sound like a prayer. Sam. Ryan Holt moves through the morning like someone trained to take inventory of what's left. He counts coffee grounds, Band-Aids, nickels in a jar. He counts pride, that one he keeps tucked away, like a reserve he will not spend. He is 36, used to doing things with his hands, fixing a rusted muffler, coaxing a stubborn engine to life. But tonight, those hands are quieter. They are tired, they are honest. Sam is 7, all elbows and scraped knees, a face freckled by a hurried summer, and a laugh that refuses to stay small. He sleeps with the baseball cap he stole from Ryan's truck perched on the pillow, the bill folded in the sleep-creased way that only children know how. When Sam turns in his sleep, the cap falls off and his lashes fan against his cheek. Ryan stands in the doorway and for a moment just watches him sleep, the way old men watch the tide. Someone, wordless, stood beside his son's bed, he thinks, and the shape of that sentence feels strange and full, like a promise you can't explain yet. It is a morning sown from the ordinary, the hot metal scent of the coffee pot, the thump of a toolbox in the hall. Ryan lifts Sam like he's carrying a quiet miracle to the small breakfast table, places a bowl with hands that still find work to do. "Pancakes?" he asks. Sam nods, eyes heavy but bright. Ryan flips batter with gentle efficiency. The kitchen a choreography he has practiced through late nights and early mornings. School lunches assembled on kitchen counters, homework checked under the glow of a truck lamp when bills were due. Dignity is found in the steady, the reliable acts his hands can deliver. Outside, rain gathers and the sky looks like it might split. Ryan glances at the clock, at the dented keys on the counter. He kisses Sam's hair with the kind of brief blessing that is both habit and defiant hope. The storm hits before noon like an animal. Wind shudders the old windows, the radio crackles with a weather alert. On the highway, a luxury sedan hydroplanes, metal shrieking, then silence snaps to light and flame. Ryan's truck roars through the blur like a necessary wrong turn. His palms sweat on the wheel, not because he's afraid for himself, but because the person inside that car might be someone else's whole life. He gets to the scene with the world turned sideways. Red streaks of tail light, steam, a smell of hot rubber and oil. Glass glitters on the asphalt like a starfield. The sedan is smoking. One door stuck, the driver's side roof caved in. People have gathered with phones, murmuring in that new, distant way. Panic always turns a crowd into witnesses. Ryan moves through the perimeter like he's been carved out of the same wood as urgency. No siren, no badge, only hands that have pried open trunks and gone after fallen things before. He sees her before the fire consumes the leather seats. A woman, hair slick with rain, face white under the dirt, trapped by a seatbelt that will not release. Her blouse is silk, plastered to her like it knows better than to be rescued. There is a look in her eyes that stops Ryan short, a mix of terror and something he cannot name. He doesn't think of class or consequence. He thinks of a human being who cannot get out. He throws himself into the mangled door as if he can unlace the world with his fingers. The metal resists and shrieks. He clamps his shoulder into it, pivots his feet against the wet ground, and finds a purchase. He remembers broken things he has fixed, a snapped axle, the stubbornness of a vintage starter, and he applies that same patience and force until the door gives. He hauls her out like she is the only thing he has ever been called to deliver. She coughs, tastes smoke. He blankets her with his jacket, the damp cotton smelling faintly of engine grease and sweat. She shivers. Neighbors shout. Someone orders an ambulance. The rain pounds, cold enough that the steam curls from the open wounds of the car. Ryan feels gravity in his bones. He feels his chest begin to slow from the wild edge of action. The woman looks at him with a tremor of something like recognition. Her hands find his as if to say thank you, but they find only calluses and a ring of grease under his nails. He has never worn a ring in his life. Her fingers are warm and unaccustomed to the grit of his palms. She breathes. He shakes his head like someone apologizing for the lack of ceremony life affords. Get her to the house, someone calls. The nearest shelter is a closed diner. The ambulance will take time. Ryan makes a choice, as he often must. Do what is immediate. He takes off his jacket, cares for burns with the awkward competence of a man who's stitched a kid's knee more times than he can count, and without a second thought, he leads her to his truck. He drives them home through sheets of rain and the stutter of wipers. The house is small and smells like last night's dinner and motor oil. Sam peeks from behind the curtain, eyes wide, a small hand pressed to his chest like a talisman. Inside, the woman sits on the sofa, dampness on her shoulders, and for a breath, the two worlds, Ryan's thrifted couch and her bruised designer coat, hold each other in a strange, honest proximity. Ryan fetches towels, presses them to cheeks that bear the salt of fear, and gives the woman space to breathe. He makes coffee like he always does when someone needs to be quiet and ordinary again. She won't speak at first. She watches Sam like he's a small planet orbiting a steady sun. When she finally does, the voice is thin, as if the rescue had seeped into her in ways that made language scarce. She starts, then finds the shape of the sentence slipping away. Ryan doesn't ask for names. He only offers a spare bedroom, a blanket. He has nowhere grand to offer anyone. His dignity is in what he will not sell. When she reaches for her purse at some point, money, insurance card, a frantic need to exchange discomfort for compensation, Ryan stops her gently, with a look that draws a line between help and transaction. "You don't need to pay me for this," he says. "You shouldn't have to pay to be alive." She insists, insurance, later, at least let her call a cab. He folds her offer into an envelope and hands it back, as if giving money might make the moment less human. His refusal isn't a sermon, it's the quiet code by which he lives. You help because you must. You don't turn saving into debt. Night settles like an extra coat. The woman sleeps on the sofa under the blanket Ryan pulled from his own bed. In the dark, he watches her breathing, the way her chest eases as if she is afraid to trust air again. He waits in the doorway of Sam's room, watching his son, bathed in the small glow of a nightlight. He kisses Sam's forehead, brief, fierce, and goes back to the couch where the stranger sleeps. He sits by the kitchen light and repairs a broken watch band left on the table, an old habit that keeps his hands from the worst of his thoughts. At some point, while the house holds its breath, the woman wakes and goes to Sam's doorway. She stands in the dark, hands folded, eyes taking in the posters on the wall, the crooked line of toys, the baseball cap on the pillow. She moves without a sound, the way a person keeps a secret when asking for forgiveness. She presses a fingertip to Sam's temple, as if blessing, as if testing the reality of the child. The touch is very small and terrible and honest. For a moment, she simply stands there, wordless, beside his bed. It is a simple thing, easily missed by anyone who keeps their eyes elsewhere. But when Ryan sees her there, something shifts inside him. Not because she speaks, she doesn't, but because the silence is not empty. It is full of attention, an attention that does not bargain. Her face is unreadable in the half-light. It's not softened by apology or softened into condescension. It is plain, human, present. In that quiet, her presence seeds something he cannot yet name. She has seen his family not as a problem to be fixed, but as life to be honored. He walks back to the couch with that silent image playing like an answer to a question he hadn't asked. Morning is absurdly ordinary after a night like that. The storm moves on, and life continues as if storms were meant only to measure us. The woman is awake and warm with coffee. Ryan watches the way she studies his son. Protective, careful, like someone who is trying on new roles and finding them fit poorly, but not impossibly. "You shouldn't have to do this," she says finally, the sentence clumsy with unfamiliar humility. Let me arrange a car, a doctor, anything you need." He refuses her again, but this time less like a stone and more like someone setting a boundary. "No, you got out. That's enough," he replies. "We don't take charity. We help each other." She presses her lips together and looks away. "I'm Veronica," she offers at last. "Veronica Chase." The name seems to belong to a different weather, a landscape of stock tickers and glass, and it lands with a gentle thud in Ryan's modest kitchen. He nods, as if he knows a thing by reputation. He looks at Sam, and Sam looks back with the unblinking trust of children who do not parse class or status. "Sam," Ryan says, "Sam Holt." They part that day like two people who share a moment out of sequence. The world resumes its small bureaucracies, insurance agents, a news bulletin about a daring roadside rescue, a photograph that makes Ryan flinch when he sees himself in the paper, a smear of grease on the collar. Ryan is more embarrassed by the attention than moved by it. The reality of their lives resists headline gloss. The photograph, a grainy capture of a man hauling a woman from a car, travels further than any of them intend. Social feeds spin the image into something heroic, in a way Ryan has never asked to be. Reporters knock on neighbors' doors. Someone photographs the handwritten card Ryan had thrown into the trash, meant for Sam's teacher. The story writes itself. Small-town hero rescues CEO, community amazement ensues. The silence that had protected him becomes a stage. Veronica reads the coverage, and, for reasons that are not only about damage control, she does something simple and inconvenient. She tracks Ryan down. When she returns, she is not wearing silk. She comes in a plain coat, hands empty, and offers apologies that are not performative. There is a tremor in the way she says his name that betrays more than a scripted press release. "I came to say thank you, properly," she says, "and to do what I can to make right what you did for me." They talk on the cracked stoop of Ryan's building, like two people trying to bridge a map of different continents. She listens to him speak of wrenches and late-night oil changes and the way rent consumes the margins of the month. He speaks in the clipped, matter-of-fact way of someone used to translating need into labor. He tells her about the lease, the deferred repairs, the landlord who forgets to fix the leak above the bathroom. He says, "We keep plugging holes. That's how we get by." She does not offer a check with fanfare. She offers papers. A quiet lawyer appears like a prop from a different life and slides a folder across the table. She has done things the way Veronica Chase does them. Legal, efficient, reported with signatures. She has purchased the building. Ryan looks at the papers, at the woman's steady gaze, and his first reaction is suspicion. "This isn't charity," she says before he can speak. "I don't want to buy your gratitude. I want to buy you a chance." Her words try to carve dignity out of the transaction. He takes the documents with fingers that tremble, not with gratitude, but with the odd hollow of someone who fought his whole life not to be saved by money. "I don't want handouts," he says. "If you buy it, don't make us feel small." She studies him. For the first time, he sees a layer of vulnerability underneath her public armor. "Show me how to do it without that," she says. "Teach me what helps. Help me make it real." They build parameters together, like careful craftsmen. She will buy the building and hold it in trust, not in spectacle. She will not plaster the walls with plaques declaring her mercy. Instead, she asks Ryan which repairs matter most, how a landlord should be accountable, how a community fund might genuinely serve single parents struggling to keep their dignity. He names basics: a secure lease, a daycare discount for late shifts, microgrants for emergencies that don't require battling paperwork. He demonstrates the small, everyday injustices that eat away at a family's sense of stability. She listens as if she has been given directions to a place she has never visited. Then, with the same decisiveness she uses in boardrooms, she announces publicly the formation of a new fund, the Holt Family Support Initiative, named after the man who refused to convert rescue into currency. The press likes the narrative. Veronica's team frames it with all the polished language of philanthropy, but the core comes directly from the conversations in Ryan's kitchen. She invites him to be involved, not as a mascot, but as a guide. He says he will come for a meeting. He does not imagine public appearances. The first time Veronica returns to the house after signing the papers, there is a quiet tension between them, like two people comparing scars. Then, one evening, when light is turning gold and Sam is finishing a drawing at the table, she moves as she did before, without fanfare, and goes upstairs to Sam's room. She stands at the doorway and looks at the boy bent over his crayons. Sam doesn't look up, comfortable as if the world were built of people who come and go. Veronica steps over the threshold and stands beside the bed. She doesn't talk. She does not make noise. She watches Sam shade a baseball with absolute concentration. Her hand hovers, and then, for no reason, she brushes his hair away from his face, the gentlest of gestures. It is small. It is intimate without being inappropriate. It is a thing that says, "I have seen you." Ryan catches the scene from the hallway and feels something uncoil in his chest. Not joy exactly, but a recognition. This is not a theatrical apology. This is a quiet attention offered without expectation. This is the secret image the title was waiting to reveal. Someone wordless standing beside his son's bed. It is not money that makes it sacred. It is the humility of a person who simply stays. That night, when Veronica leaves, she folds something small and places it carefully on the kitchen table. A pen, plain and heavy, engraved with the words, "For steady hands." There is no fanfare. It is an object that says, "You are seen in your work." Ryan runs his thumb over the engraving, thinking like a man who knows how to hold tools with respect. Gratitude arrives folded in a way that does not demand repayment. The Holt Fund launches 3 months later in a gymnasium that smells of varnish and fluorescent light. Banners hang, but they are modest. No gold lettering, no ostentatious logos. Veronica speaks about accountability and the danger of philanthropy that talks without listening. The cameras angle for the picture, but she insists Ryan speak. He does not want to. He is not a man who enjoys being watched. But Veronica's hands are steady at his DAC. She offers no speeches, only nudges. Ryan stands on a plywood stage that feels more like a school auditorium than a charity gala, and he speaks in the flat, honest voice that belongs to someone who has never needed to sell himself. "We don't want pity," he says. "We want a chance to get the work done." His words are simpler than the lines rehearsed on press kits. He talks about the laundromat where mothers exchange coupons, about a night shift mechanic with no backup childcare, about waking up to a note that says "rent overdue" and the way your stomach drops like a stone. He says, "If someone gives us a ladder, show us how to climb it. Don't hand us down a rope and pretend it's progress." The crowd rounds the words with applause, but the real applause is the way the parents who came to the launch look at each other, recognized, included. Veronica watches Ryan with a softness she has not shown in boardroom photos. The fund will be small and precise. Grants for repairs, emergency daycare, microloans to keep a small business from folding. It will not make headlines save for the quiet ones that matter. The paperwork is not extravagant. Its power lies in the names on it and the people who carry it out. A reporter asks Ryan if the public attention has changed him. He looks at the child in the front row, a kid with a sleeve full of crayons, and says, "It made me realize someone else might see people like us and decide to stay. That's what matters. That's all the change I need." After the event, the crowd thins, and Veronica finds him by the back exit. She hands him the pen she had left months ago, now wrapped in a napkin. "You deserved more than a headline," she says simply. They grow closer in the way two people who share work do, small, accumulated moments rather than cinematic declarations. Veronica learns how to brew the right strength of coffee for Ryan. He learns the way she prefers to line up receipts and the way her fingers smooth when she is anxious. There are lunches that turn into late-night calls, arguments about the fun's scope that are less about control than about learning to trust dissent. They find each other in the practicalities, Veronica letting Ryan name the nonprofit board members who are survivors too. Ryan showing Veronica the day-to-day of running a small shop and what it takes to stay afloat. Romance in this story is not a lightning strike, but a slow heat under a pot left on a low flame, consistent warming. One afternoon, Veronica drives to the auto shop where Ryan works alongside his friend Marco. Ryan, grease on his forearms, lifts the hood and teaches Veronica how to check the oil dipstick. Her hair escapes its clip and falls across her forehead as she concentrates, her face real and unadorned. She laughs when she makes a small mistake, and the laugh is honest enough to knit them further. She buys an old oil can and refuses to let it be ribbon-tied as a gift. When the Holt mechanics sign goes up, it is simple, painted letters, a hand-drawn wrench motif, the kind of shop sign that says, "We belong to this street." Sam rides his bike in front of the shop like a small ambassador, delivering flyers he drew himself for the community's free checkup day. He is learning the language of tools, how to hand someone a wrench, how to say thank you with a firm nod. Veronica watches him with a new kind of fondness, the way you watch a new idea take root in a garden you helped water. She sits on the bench outside the shop, reading a pamphlet about small business loans, then looks up when Ryan catches her eye. She does not elaborate on feelings in grand speeches. She folds them into action. A scholarship for Sam's summer camp, a quieter arrangement to cover a furnace repair next winter, an offer to match funds for community classes Ryan wants to teach at the shop on basic car maintenance for parents. Yet even with these changes, life remains honest at work. The landlord who once delayed repairs is not erased. The fund's money does not solve every night Sam wakes with a fever. The struggle becomes less solitary. People start to show up. Neighbors who once crossed the street to avoid awkwardness now bring casseroles. Parents who use the Holt fund for daycare swap numbers with one another and form a carpool network. Veronica steps back when she sees things functioning without her intervention. She has learned that power's real use is creating space for others to grow. One night, months after the launch, a delivery comes in a simple wooden box. Inside sits the pen, now joined by a small blue key with Holt stamped on it. It is for the blue truck that has been central to Ryan's work, a replacement engine marking stability. The gift is practical, respectful of the life Ryan has built. He keeps the engraving and the key together in a drawer labeled Tools and Life, a drawer he opens sometimes when he needs to remind himself he belongs to presence, not spectacle. They continue like this, people with histories, refusing easy explanations. Veronica makes mistakes. Once, later in a public board meeting, she suggests a high-profile corporate tie-in that Ryan quietly deflects because it would dilute the fund's purpose. He saves the day by arguing in plain language, reminding them that dignity is not a branding exercise. She hears him, humbled, and the moment cements the partnership as mutual, not patronizing. The town begins to see the ripple. A neighbor, Carla, uses a micro-grant to fix the brakes on her car and gets to work in time to keep her second job. Her daughter brings home an A in math the same week. The fund pays for half of a community garden fence so kids can plant without worrying the rabbits will eat the first seedlings. These are small victories, granular changes, sufficient, necessary work. No miracle cures, no overnight reversals. Authenticity, the town learns, looks a lot like a calendar of scheduled repairs and the slow accumulation of trust. Sam grows. not into privilege, but into a boy with a stable school roster and a teacher who calls with a report card that is mostly good. He learns the dignity of steady labor by watching his father. He learns new language from Veronica, words like impact and accountability. But he also learns how to tighten a bolt and how to make someone laugh with a perfectly timed joke about a funny muffler noise. There are evenings when Ryan and Veronica sit on the bench outside the shop and make plans that begin with small things. A better sink in the kitchen, a new coat for Sam that can be worn on muddy days without being cherished into sadness. They do not marry their lives in a single ceremony of transformation. They choose instead a lifetime of commitments, shared responsibility for bills, a plan for the school fund, an agreement that Veronica will sometimes step back to let Ryan lead, and sometimes ask for his counsel when she has to make a tough philanthropic call. This reciprocity is the central architecture of the new family, power redistributed, not hoarded. One winter evening, a year after the rescue, the house feels different in a way that cannot be reduced to new paint. There is a sense of room to breathe. The hole in the roof has been fixed, the lights stay on. Sam sleeps in his own bed, now with a baseball glove propped on the shelf and a lamp he chose himself. Ryan watches the silhouette of his son through the doorway. Veronica stands beside him. She does not speak. She does not hand out cards or smoke a press release. She simply stands with Ryan in the hallway, hands folded, eyes on Sam. The room is low lit, a golden hush that softens the sharp edges of hard days.
For a second, the world condenses into that image. A child relieved of 2 wakes at night, one for hunger and one for fear, and 2 adults who have learned to be guardians in different currencies. In the silence, Ryan feels the same deep, steady relief he has felt before, but amplified. Not because bills are gone, there are always more, but because the burden of facing them alone has shifted. He knows Veronica will not erase his past or pretend to have all answers. She will, however, stand in the spaces he cannot fill alone. She will be the hand at the elbow, the person who shows up without a camera when the furnace dies at midnight. She will be the presence that asks how to help and then listens to the answer. The last scene of the night is as simple as the first. Veronica, wordless, watching a boy sleep. Close-ups would catch the little things that make silence speak. The tremor in the way her hand curls at her side, the gentleness of her breath, the light catching on the pen on the bedside table. The camera might linger on Ryan's hands, the grease under the nails as he folds a blanket at the foot of the bed. It might move to Sam's face, relaxed in sleep, the baseball cap lying on the nightstand like a claim staked for tomorrow. If you could put a name to the feeling that fills the room, it would be steadiness. Not the glint of a public rescue photograph, but the small, stubborn accumulation of care. Ryan used to think he only needed to survive. Now he learns how to accept the kind of help that is not about buying his silence, but about sharing the workload. Time, inevitable and honest, brings more modest triumphs. Holt Mechanics becomes a small hub for the neighborhood. Veronica uses her influence to connect local businesses with vocational programs, creating apprentice spots for kids who need a trade as much as they need a paycheck. The Holt Fund holds its first anniversary with a potluck rather than a gala, where the people it helped speak from a small stage about what stability feels like. At that anniversary, Ryan does not rehearse a speech. He hands the mic to a single mom with a voice that cracks when she talks about how the microgrant allowed her to repair a transmission and keep driving her children to school. People applaud not for spectacle, but in solidarity. Veronica stands in the back with her arms folded like someone glad to be part of a common story rather than the author of it. And there are personal markers as well. Veronica buys the truck a sheet of custom floor rubber, not as a showy gift, but to keep oil off the seat. Ryan learns to let himself ask for help when the weather takes an unexpected turn. They build a life that is not glossy, but sustainable. They marry their routines more than their headlines. Saturday breakfasts at the diner that serves bottomless coffee, a shared grocery list that reads like a liturgy. One spring morning, in the same quiet way that began everything, Ryan wakes early.
He crosses the hallway and finds Sam awake and sitting at the kitchen table, crayon in hand. He watches his son and thinks of the night the stranger stood wordless in the doorway, how a simple attention could change the direction of a life. Ryan opens a drawer, presses a pen into his palm, the one engraved with "For steady hands," and writes a short note. Keep going. He leaves it on Sam's pillow like a small prophecy. Years later, when Sam is old enough to understand the texture of stories and the weight of choices, Ryan will tell him about the night he pulled a stranger from a car in the rain, and about the woman who did not use the act to build a monument to herself. He will tell Sam how dignity matters, how refusing charity that diminishes you is a kind of sacred stubbornness, and how accepting help that preserves your agency is courage of its own. The final image returns to the first one, but nothing is exactly the same. Night has softened 1,000 edges into the shape of family. The Holt mechanic sign glows in the distance like an anchor. Inside the modest house, a child sleeps. Two adults stand in the doorway, not because the story's conflict is resolved, but because they have both decided to stay with the work it takes to keep the home upright. Someone wordless stands beside his son's bed. She watches the boy breathe. Her presence is not a thing to be monetized or sensationalized. It is a quiet testament that sometimes the most profound gifts are small, unadvertised acts of attention. She steps back without ceremony and leaves the room to the night. Ryan folds the blanket around Sam and turns off the lamp. On the kitchen table, the familiar pen waits in the drawer, an ordinary promise against the ordinary dark. If this story moves you, consider supporting local single-parent initiatives. On-screen text. Stories like these do not end with a single rescue or a headline. They end with the slow, stubborn work of a neighborhood that learns how to keep each other afloat. If you want to hear more true-feeling stories about ordinary people whose small acts change lives, subscribe and check the link below for information about the fictional Holt Fund and ways to support community-based assistance.